Hey there, party people.
Hola,
Hola,
how are
hola.
you?
I'm good. You are a busy Zoomer, Fluffy.
Yeah, I got the zoomies. What could I say?
Yeah, you got Zoom fever.
Yeah. Um, so I am actually at work opening the store, so my boss doesn't have to be here early. Um, so you might see me moving around, going off camera, things like that as I need to do things. But we normally don't have any customers this early in the morning, so I don't anticipate doing much.
I got the recording on. Now let's talk about our three bodies. So you know what? We just had an amazing meditation today by a wonderful Reiki master who also does Eden Energy Method style of healing, which is a form of tapping. And we talked about this. So I'm super excited to talk a little bit more about our three bodies. All right, so really quick, here are the three bodies. We have our physical body, right? We have our energetic body, which is what a lot of people notice is their personal space. And then we have our spiritual body. And each one has a different energetic value as well as a density. That's your energetic values, your density. The thing that's really interesting, we know what our physical body is. We have a pretty good idea of what well, we're all intuitive, so we have a really good idea of what our energetic body is. But what I'd like you to know is that our energetic body, that is our intuition as well as our emotions. So and that's where I find everything very interesting, because intuition and emotions are very closely related. They are a little bit intertwined. And what's important is to separate the two so that we can know when our intuition's talking and when our emotions are talking, which is normally fear, worry, anxiety, right? Those things. And then, and then we have our spiritual body. Amy, got any questions about that yet?
Where does the soul come in?
Good question. In my philosophy, based on what I understand from the fifth dimension, is that our soul is similar to that of, I'll just say our soul is infinite because it is connected to our infinite energy. Let's put it that way. It has its own timeline. It's a timeline that we cannot fathom. So a soul cannot be broken. My soul can be broken, right? In the drama way, someone broke my heart, my soul is broken. But really, a soul cannot be broken. So here's, I'm going to go ahead and get a little bit politically incorrect. So having said that if babies do not come to full term, their soul has not been broken. All right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The soul has not been broken. So that's a really, really good question. And that's the understanding that I have. So you know that I do fifth dimension. Yeah, go ahead, Amy. Wait. For some reason I can't hear you. I can't hear you. That's so weird. Have you tried without your headset and use your inner mic? Okay. Do you want to sign on with your phone as well? And then use your phone? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Do we have you all set, Amy? Okay, it looks like Amy's going to chat it. It's so weird. All right. Do we have you all set, Amy? Oh my gosh, hang on. Now I got feedback going on. Apologies. Looks like he's going to chat it. It's so weird. Do we have you on set, Amy? Oh my gosh. Hang on. Now I got feedback going on.
It sounds like
All
your
right.
past is coming forward to haunt you.
Hopefully this is better. Apologies. I got to find out where you are. All right. Everything's better now. Amy, I cannot hear you, so I'm going to keep going, and then we'll just when you're ready, we'll come back to your question. Is that all right? All right. So we were talking about our three bodies, and we were talking about the soul. Do you have any questions about that part, Fluffy?
Not that in particular, but something else came up. What's a walk-in, and how is that connected?
All right. Hold on 1 second. I got feedback going on. This is like the worst thing ever. That's so not true. All right. Can you ask your question again, Fluffy?
How does a walk-in affects the mind, body, and spirit when it happens?
So walk-in is actually a relatively new piece of information for me. All right. And the way that I understand it is that a walk-in comes in kind of like a last minute thing, right? Last second thing. Is that your understanding of a walk-in?
Mm-hmm.
So my understanding of walk-in energetically is when there's been an agreement before birth, right? And then all of a sudden there's a switch. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So here's what happens to this person as they come on in, is that so if you think about the soul being infinite energy, it's my understanding that when a walk-in comes in, a walk-in doesn't come in completely clean. Now the walk-in comes in 100%, but there is a little bit of like, let's call it a vapor trail from the soul, or if there was an agreement and the other moved out. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, so everything is the same except that there is a misconception in memories. So what's happening is it's kind of like when you are at having a conversation and you have empathetic pains. It's the same thing with those who've come in that are walk-in souls. They have a little bit of ghost trauma, I think is the best way to say it. And it's kind of interesting that they have to figure out like what's ghost trauma, because you still have to deal with it, right? But it's not from your energetic value. Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay, and so energetically everything is still the same. The soul is still infinite. It's still right. It still cannot be broken. It's just kind of like a switcheroony, and then a little bit of a vapor trail.
Okay, so once the switchover happens, what happens to the original occupant?
It's my understanding is that it's the same as if there was no switch. It doesn't matter. So you have to remember that there's no concept of time, and it's all about fluid and flow. And so if it wasn't fluid enough for this to happen, then all it does is that I won't call it a step aside. It's kind of just like it slips off and goes and waits for the next thing. If there is such a concept of waiting. Does that make sense?
It does. I am in that situation, but the part of me that was supposed to vacate never left.
So you're of two souls in one body, is what you're saying.
Yeah. And and this was something I consciously did over the course of 8 years, where I hated my life and I invited in someone else, and the original version of me went to sleep under a tree. And eventually that original woke up. And I had a divine intervention from where someone was channeling, and he never did that before. And the being that was channeling in front of me told me to, under no circumstances am I going to try to force the internal dialogue to go in either direction
Uh-huh.
to fix it or to seek a resolution. Just
Uh-huh.
simply let the crazy be.
This is your decision?
Well, I was told not to try to. I was told not to try. I was told to avoid trying to find a resolution
Gotcha.
because no matter
Gotcha.
how I did, I would do it wrong.
Gotcha. That's kind of an interesting, that's a kind of an interesting thing. That is something that I think that we would need to talk about
Yeah, yeah.
after this, because it's beyond the three bodies, and I'm fascinated. And
Mhm.
because I'm fascinated, you know, I want to investigate.
Yeah.
But yeah, but God, it's a great, it's a great topic, something that really.
But I'm only saying this because when those two are not in agreement, my mind, body, and spirit alignment does not work.
Right. But you have to think about this, right? It's kind of like two people living in a 100 square foot home,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? And one of them needs to go outside to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Or, you know, or they're in a 100, hey, this is even a better one. There's two people living in a 100 square foot home. You both have the stomach flu, and there's only one bathroom,
Hmm.
right? And so the smell from one person can actually nauseate the other, who still has to go to the bathroom. And so now you've got all kinds of stuff going on, and you're not sure which need to fill first.
Yeah, I view it as Siamese twins.
Except I don't know. I've never met Siamese twins, so I don't know. But
Nor have
I
I.
can imagine. I can
Okay.
imagine,
Yeah.
right? Kind of. Here comes Amy. Here comes the other Amy. So, so yeah. So we've got the three bodies. I'd imagine because you have two souls that your energetic body is a little bit different as well, because you have two souls and then you have a blending of energies, right?
Hmm.
So that's something I would actually really be interested in checking out as well, because it's almost like you're speaking two languages while you're trying to develop just one. Make sense?
It does.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and I can tell that it actually affects you very much emotionally. Um, uh, and it's not about confusion; it's more about overload. So I'm sure your overwhelm level is fairly low because because you're already crowded. Make sense energetically or no?
It does.
Okay. All right. So I'm hoping I'm still on Facebook Live. Am I?
It says you are.
Great. I can't find myself, which is I was hoping to see if there are any questions. Anyway, so we have the physical body, we have the energetic body, and then we have the spiritual body. So I like to look at it as like a chocolate caramel M&M.
Ooh.
I know, right? Where the chocolate is in the very center, then you've got your caramel, and then instead of having the hard cover, the hard candy cover, let's just call it some kind of misty. Let's call it cotton candy. All right. So what happens is that your physical body is your densest. Then you've got your emotional, intuitive body, which is of a lighter and greater level. And then you have your spiritual body, which is of an even greater level. And I like to look at it as a flame, so that you have this, and then this, and then this. Okay. Even though your soul energy runs more than one direction, I just like the thought of a flame, right? So if you think of the flame, there's the yellow, the red, and the white, or however you take a look at it, right? It's more than one color. Make sense? All right. So what I'd love to do is I'd love to talk about two things if we have time. The first one is how does one body affect the other two bodies? And specifically, your energetic body and where your intuition and your emotions lie and how they interact. So those are the two splits off your topic. Anybody interested in one over the other? No? No, Amy, did you want to ask your question before we, is there a difference between spirit and soul? In my in my philosophy, to me, it's the same. Okay, so it's the greater energetic thing that's really hard for us to define because our language is so limited, right? So there's a lot of things that we experience that we really can't express properly, and more than anything else, it's just because we have limited vocabulary. That's all.
Oh, I do have one question.
Let's hear it.
Um, I understand what you mean by our vocabulary is too limited to describe what we experience. Is there a language, any language that that provides a better vocabulary to use to describe what we experience beyond the English language?
It's a really good question. And my answer is yes, but it's very personal. So for me, I'm a very visual person. So the language of images is much greater than that of language. And when you're vibing with someone and you don't need to talk, right? That's another thing where you I guess there was this book in the 70s where I can't remember what it was called, but there's this term that came out, which is grok. And when you grok somebody, you completely encompass the whole thought of what the other person has, like the whole thought, right?
That was from the book A Stranger in a Strange Land.
Gotcha. Okay. So obviously I've never read it, but I love that people would say, I grok that. I'm like, okay, so grok it. So when you grok something, when you grok another person or their concept, then that is the complete communication. But you got to remember that we are all human beings, which means that we all have our own experiences. We have our own take on our own experiences, which means that it's really hard to grok something because the odds of us communicating as human beings completely is 1 in 68 trillion. So if I can grok you one time today, and that is not a pornographic thing, Lucky, but if I can grok you one time in our lifetime together, that's a pretty damn good thing, right? And if we can, and I really don't want to bring that word back because I don't think it's a very pretty word, but if we could grok concepts, and that would be the best form of communication. For me, it's a visual communication. If I don't have someone that's like right in alignment with me, and then it doesn't matter what we say because we get each other, right? I have a friend that I absolutely adore her, and in real life we've only met 3 times, but in sisterhood, I feel like we've known each other for many lifetimes. So I would say I don't quite grok her, but we could talk about anything and we can feel the deeper meaning between it, underneath it, because it's an energetic deal, right? So, but if we don't get there, then for me, it's the visuals. A picture's worth 1,000 words, right? So I might as well,
Thank you.
So I go as visual as possible, right? Does anybody have any questions about that? No?
How do you spell grok?
I don't even know. There you go.
GROK.
Right? I put the OK in grok. So I'm telling you, I heard that term in the early 90s. And and I think I'm just a little bit too young, not for that book, but to be a part of the people that use that word often, right? So that when you say grok, people can actually grok you. Crazy. All right, so we've got let's first talk about my favorite part, which is the energetic body, right? I love talking about the energetic body because it's absolutely unique and dynamic. And it houses 2 things at the same time. It houses your emotions and it houses your intuition. And they're two variables of the same thing. An emotion comes from a past experience, right? So you have an experience, based on the experience, you have an emotion, and then that's what connects based on that memory. That's what moves us, propels us forward with our emotions. Make sense? Our intuition is energy based, it is emotionally based, and it's experience based. So intuition is a layer that's, I'll just call it the outside layer of your energetic body, even though it's not entirely accurate. I believe your intuition is your whole energetic body, and your emotions are also in your energetic body. I just don't feel it's as big as your intuitive body. All right. So here's what happens. A lot of times people misinterpret their intuition because their intuition and emotions are so intertwined, right? And so what happens is that there are a lot of miscommunications and misunderstandings that happen because we're using our intuition. We're also having an emotion that goes with it. And because we are multi-sensory beings, I can feel your emotion. I can hear what you're trying to relate intuitively, and there's a mismatch. And then not only that, based on my past, my memories, my experience, I may have a slightly different vocabulary than you. So can you imagine what amazing people we are, or amazing beings we are, that we have emotions, we have experiences, and then we have this analytical side of us, and we're trying to convey ideas and messages, things that are important, and some people actually get us. I mean, think about the odds of all that. It's kind of crazy. So here's the thing that's really important. What's really important is to understand that there are two sides of the same coin, but they have two distinct voices or energies. Does that make sense? Can I get buy-in on that? All right. So what's really important is for us as human beings to really get to know our emotions and be cool about that. Hello, Janet. And be really cool about it. And then work the intuitive side, intuitive side as well, so that you can hear the two different voices, so that the two voices can have a conversation, right? And come to a conclusion. Does that make sense? All right. There are some days where I just want to be emotional. I'm like, fuck my intuition. I don't really care. I want to be very human. I want to wail. I want to throw a tantrum. It's actually, to me, it's a good thing, because we are human beings and we do have this finite body, and sometimes our emotions get into our body and we need to get it out. All right. Which leads us into the second thing. But sometimes it's really important for us to listen to our intuition. So here's an example. You probably hear something really good about yourself, not from somebody else, but from inside of you, right? And then the very next thought is, it tends to be your critical thought. So anybody want to give me an example? Because I know we've all experienced it. No? All right, I'll give you one. I think everybody knows here that I do martial arts. So, if I'm out there and I'm fighting, because we do get to fight, and just so you know, fighting is the best meditation ever. It's the fastest and best moving meditation that I've ever experienced. And I've heard that there are other things that are great moving meditations, but fighting is actually really good as a practice, not as a way of releasing something. But fighting as a moving meditation is amazing, because you come across all your fears and limiting thoughts like that, right? So you have epiphanies in less than 2 minutes. But as I'll be out there and I'll be fighting, and even as I'm fighting, I'm saying, wow, I'm a really good fighter. And then the very next thought, that's me being in flow. That's me being intuitive. And then the very next thought is, I'm too old. I'm too fat. I'm too tiny. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not fast enough. These are all my emotions. These are all my fear thoughts. So now what I need to do is, well, one, I'm fighting. So I need to quell these thoughts so I can stay in flow. Otherwise I will get, you don't get hurt, but I also don't want to get hit. So I don't want to get hit. I want to stay in flow. So my intuition needs to I need to know my intuitive voice so I can soften my emotional and analytical voice. And then when I'm done fighting, I need to be able to have a conversation between my intuition and my emotions so I can respect my emotions, but not let my emotions overrule. Make sense? Okay, so now I know everybody else has had some kind of experience like that. And I'd love to talk to you about it if you want to share, but if not, I can go ahead and move on. Anybody want to share their intuitive and then emotional, analytical backup thoughts? No? All right. So here's the deal. The deal that's really interesting is that if we are not in alignment, we've got 3 bodies. And if our bodies are not in alignment, what happens is think of our thoughts and our energy as dust. Okay. So what happens is if we're not paying attention to our spiritual body, which happens a lot because we're human beings, and then it affects our emotional body, and we're not really listening to it intuitively, then what happens is that then it starts affecting our physical body. So it just kind of sifted on down. And then we have a chance to experience it in our physical body. So it could be a sore throat. I mean, has anybody ever, it's really simple. Has anybody ever been on a phone conversation and the other person's doing their thing and all of a sudden your throat tightens up? Anybody ever have that? Right? So that's your intuitive body. It's your intuitive body allowing your physical body to experience this. Doesn't mean you have to, but what it means is that if all of a sudden you're choking and you're the one coughing, that you're not in alignment with your intuitive, emotional, and physical body, right? So it's great to use it as an indicator, but it's not okay for it to lock you up. Same thing. You could be on the phone or you could be talking to someone and they're telling their story, and all of a sudden your energy level goes down and you yawn and you want to go to sleep. You want to get off the phone. Has anybody experienced that? Okay. That's the same thing. It's someone's intuitive body. It's your intuitive body that you don't have in alignment. And then it affects your physical body, right? So the energetic body is that, ooh, this person's energy is a little bit more dense than mine, right? And this density of energy is making me sleepy and tired. Make sense? It also happens, Katya talked about this last night, where someone could have an argument. I do real estate, so I understand this on such a great level. But people can have an argument in a certain room, and they leave, and you can walk in, and energetically, you can feel the fight still. Does that make sense? Have you ever done that, where you walk in and I know you have, Janet, because of the feng shui, right? It's like you can't help it. And so then what happens?
It's not just the feng shui. I've been in spiritual practices where I give light and I pick up people's illness and their sickness. Right. Just like holding my hand close to them, you can feel the energy's different, and you pick it up.
Yeah. And so the thing is, and I know that Fluffy's been in classes and Amy's been in classes that they've experienced it as well. But now think about this. Can you imagine if you're not in touch with your intuitive body and going, okay, this is not my shit, right? I'm feeling someone else's shit. And then you allow it to go into your physical body. Okay. The challenge with that is that we don't know what that is. It just happened to be energy. And so now as a physical body, we don't know how to get rid of it because there's no label.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
Right? So that's why it's really important to be in alignment so that you're actually protecting your physical body. But here's another piece. Yeah, go ahead, Fluffy.
Well, there's also there's an additional downside to that. If you're not in alignment with yourself and you pick up someone else's energy, that energy has a certain association of problems and misconceptions, and you wind up adopting those as yours.
Exactly. Now think about that. That's a challenge, right? Let's say someone is having a challenge with their sister, right? I don't have a sister, but now all of a sudden I have this thing about a sister somewhere in my body, and I got to figure out a way to get it out because I haven't been paying attention. All right. But let's throw another layer on top of this. Okay. So I'm a human being, and I want people to like me. So I come from a pleasing attitude. Sometimes I will compromise. I will make compromises so that people will like me. This is something that I'm working on, right? It's only a 53-year-old problem, not a big deal, right? So so can you imagine that I'm walking in as a pleaser, even in this intuitive body, and then someone comes in and they also happen to be a pleaser, but their way of going about pleasing is completely different, and then it attaches, and because it's pleasing and pleasing, it's the law of attraction of the energy, and then it comes into my physical body. So there's just enough misinterpretation that you can't get the shit out. Make sense? All right, does anybody have any questions about this?
Well, I used to bring that up to the Dodo Cho, or the leaders of our spiritual group, that I was picking up people's sicknesses and their energies after I gave light to them. And their solution was that I would just keep on giving more light to them. But I don't know, at the moment of time, once you pick up that energy, what do you do with it? I mean, you just have to work it through, or just live with it for a little bit, and then it goes away eventually. But that's their solution. That was their solution, that I needed to give more light.
In a way, so let me see if I can see. This is that whole thing about using words. I believe what they're saying is this. When I do a meditation, one of my favorite meditations, I call Inner Sun. And what I do is I make my inner sun so bright that it fills up and grows my energetic body. And then what happens is, if my inner sun is at its optimal, then only energy that is of the same vibration or higher can come in. So I don't like to call it a form of defense or a boundary. I call it my inner light, right? My energy. So my interpretation of what they're saying to you, Janet, is get your inner sun super, super strong so that you get to see it and observe the sickness or the illnesses, but it doesn't enter in your energy. All right? It takes practice. It takes a lot of practice.
Well, they feel better. The people I'm giving light, they feel better immediately, but I'm picking up their crap,
well, sure.
stuff that they are having, headaches or whatever, and depression. Yeah. I'm picking it up, but and giving light is almost like giving a form of love vibration.
Yep.
You're giving the vibration of love, and it was a really good practice, but it took a lot out of me. Yeah. And I didn't know how to deal with, once I get it, what do I do? Just kind of let it ride, Right. But it does go away, but you have to live with it that moment of time.
Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. The first thing is that Seema is on. Hey, Seema. And she wanted to throw in some information, which is that if grounding yourself, that's what we were talking about as part of your, like the Inner Sun meditation is there's grounding that goes in with that meditation. Shaking it off, right? Shaking it out, and saltwater baths or showers have helped. I come from and it all works. We do it for crystals. We do it for, other things. It's any other kind of grounding. So like for me, if I go out outside barefoot, that helps me with the grounding and the releasing of this energy. But I also kind of want to remind you is that you don't want to pick it up, right? You want to be at a place where you acknowledge it and let it be. Or you acknowledge it. I do house clearings. So I acknowledge it and then I help it shift, right? Without changing my energy. So to do that, it's about making sure that you're in your very strong intuitive bubble and that your emotions are set aside. It's not like I don't have emotions, but my emotions are set aside. So if I walk into a house, I'm surprised. I love that we're talking about houses now. I don't know where I went with that, but we can talk about it with people too. But if I go into a house, or when I go into a house, and I feel that one of my favorite houses that I went to go clear was a flip, and you would think that flip would have weird energy as that it's only business, there's no love, right? But this one had a whole lot of anger in it because the contractor and the owner fought all the time, and they happened to fight in the same area every time. So wherever I am, just so you know, they fought in the garage, and the living room was right above the garage, and then there's a bed above the living room. So, so I actually had to do a downward spiral on the clearing. But the thing that's really important is that when I'm in clearing mode, I can feel the anger, feel it as in I acknowledge it, but I don't take it on, right? It's all about, right? Because I've got a job to do. So that's the difference of acknowledge, and that's your intuition going, oh yeah, I recognize that. That's anger, right? And then moving that through and converting that anger to something else, so that the people who come on in, they don't feel the anger just like I did. Because trust me, our intuition's going 24/7. So you're walking through, it's kind of like super gross, but let's just say you're walking along and someone in front of you, 30 feet in front of you that had turned a corner so you don't see, they passed gas, they farted. You're walking into their fart, right? And you're like, I have no idea, but that was unpleasant, right? So it's the same thing energetically. It's just not as obvious. Does anybody have any questions about this part? No?
Well, I do houses a lot, as a feng shui consultant.
Of course you do, that's right.
And, and you're right. Every house has a different energy, and you have to learn to protect yourself. There's some good and bad, and,
right.
and they're on death and emptiness lines, and, people didn't know, but they're getting bad luck all of a sudden.
Right.
They don't understand why,
right.
and,
right.
and I actually had a client that had that, and she went from a very good house to a very bad house that had a lot of bad energy from the past. And it was a beautiful house. You couldn't tell the difference, but it was just on death and emptiness, all the death and emptiness lines.
Yeah.
In feng shui, that's really bad because
right.
the energy's not good, so she's experiencing all this bad luck.
Right.
She doesn't know why,
Right. So here's the thing about that is,
Mm-hmm.
In feng shui, we have cures, or you have cures. What do people say? I'm a feng shui enthusiast. I am not a feng shui expert, right? But the thing is that here's this poor person who has the energy not just of the house, and just think of your house as another form of body, because that's exactly what it is. So if in my body I am a sugar addict, yeah, that's the word I want to use. In my house, guess what? There is an energy of sugar addiction, which it kind of for today is a truth. Today, until I work on, I do my meditation. At this very moment, I haven't done my meditation. Actually, I just changed my mind. Just a few minutes ago, I was a sugar addict. However, my house has all these memories, a history of all this sugar addiction. And so now my new thought is having conflict with my old thoughts, right? And because I have a baby new thought, it's a challenge to go against the whole bunch of old thoughts. So it's kind of like getting rid of a whole bunch of dust and grime. And so now here's this poor woman who also is on meridians, which is even greater than the house, but the house is also holding. So there's a whole lot of stuff going on. Crazy, but true. All right, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to talk about how, in a weird way, it's the same as feng shui, where your environment or your energetic body is affecting your physical body, right? So in your house, because it's holding all these emotions, even though you change your thought, the house is still holding your old thoughts, and so you're in constant work mode in order for your stuff to go through. And what happens is that if you're always in work mode, your body gets tired. And it's the same thing if we're just talking in our energetic body. Does anybody have any questions about intuition versus emotion, or the effects of one body to another? No? All right, so then let's go in the reverse, right? In the reverse, if we focus on our illness, our physical illness, let's just guess, what does that do to our emotional and energetic body?
you get depressed. You get sick.
Depression, right? Well, that's still an emotional thing. You're absolutely right. So that is a physical thing that goes to an emotional thing. So yeah, you get extremely emotional, right? And it could feel like depression. It could feel like an anxiety. It can feel like a whole lot of things. And what happens is that, think about your energy bubble. What happens to your energy bubble, your energetic body?
It retracts.
It retracts, or I'll call it not so translucent or clear or bright. Okay. So, and then when that happens, what does it do? It feeds back into your physical body, which then, exerts into your energetic body, which goes back and forth. Right. So it's really important to, when you work on your physical body, you want to make sure to have care for your energetic body as well. Okay. Any questions about that? Go ahead, Amy.
So, I have physical energy issues.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people want to say that my physical energy issues are because of emotional reasons, but okay, I'm going to give you an example of something that happened, and I'm wondering if you can explain that. Okay, so one day I was at East Bay Church of Religious Science. It was an amazing day, extremely high vibration. I left feeling amazing, and I had more energy than usual, and my next appointment was just a mile away. So I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna walk there. But by the time I only walked like half a mile, and then my body, it just felt like, daggers were hitting me, and it felt like poison was running through my veins. So that had nothing to do with my mood or my thoughts or my emotions, because I felt amazing that day.
Sure.
And so, like,
So
what is
what's the
something
deal?
bad about?
So the deal is this. Intuitively, I believe that you can boost your energy level, and you can sustain your energy level. It's just about figuring out what is the modality that's going to work best for you. But I'm not saying that your physical body is all about your energetic body. So think about this. If you hadn't gone, let's just say you were at the church and you didn't have an amazing day, would you even have considered walking that mile to your next appointment?
Oh, definitely not. I would have taken
Right.
the bus.
Right. And so that's the thing. So the thing is that your energetic body did help your physical body get you to where you need to go. The challenge is in the sustainability. So what I believe there are two things. One is that you are very sensitive, and in your sensitivity, there is your capacity to sustain your energy is not at its best. Right. So right now it's about finding what your capacity is, and then finding a way to start. So if this is your level, and we're going to talk about your physical body and your energetic body, what we want to do is that this is your physical capacity. We want your energetic body just to like poke at it just a little bit, right? So that you can feel the difference. Okay. And then once you can feel the difference, and you know what the energetic thing that can sustain you is, then we would work on it more specifically. So I'll give you an example. If you go to that church every day, right, knowing that then what will happen is that you will become more sustainable. Your energy will become more sustainable. That doesn't mean you would be walking from a half a mile to a marathon, but what it could say is that you could walk to your next appointment. And then the second thing would be that you could go to your next appointment and you wouldn't be exhausted after your appointment. So your sustainability would be a little bit different, okay? The other thing is that there's a part of you that has a huge healing aspect, but the healing aspect cannot be tapped yet because and this is the hard part, is because of your physical body and your focus on your physical body, it's really hard for you to focus on your healing aspect. Now, the healing aspect is not about receiving healing. The healing aspect is that you're a healer. Okay, so remember how Janet said, my feng shui masters say, give more energy? Is that what they said, Janet?
Well, it was the dojo chose. They're trained in this type of spiritual practice.
Gotcha.
They're like our leaders, you know,
Right.
of the spiritual group. And they told me, I said, how do I deal with this? Because it's hard on me. And they said, you need to give
Give
more
more.
light.
Right.
Give more light, and
Right.
after a while, you won't notice it or it'll go away. And, and so I did, and I don't know, but when it came, it wasn't always all the time, but
Uh-huh.
I'd say it was 50% of the time,
Uh-huh.
it was hit and miss.
Sure.
And I said, wow, I'm getting this headache. Wow, my
Right.
arm's starting to hurt.
Right.
And, but they didn't, like what you just said about the salt baths. And I heard about that too.
That was
that
SEMA. That is
dunk
SEMA.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, SEMA is right. I've heard that before, that you
Yeah.
can do that or put a protective light over you,
Yeah.
before you do anything
Sure.
with anyone.
Yeah.
So
Right. You can pick any modality, but to go back to Amy's point, what it is,
Mhm.
Amy, is that there's a part of you that's a healer. So let me see how to best explain it. When you heal someone else or you help someone else heal, what happens is that it opens up an energetic portal. I guess that's the best way to say, that allows in more energy. Now there's a part of you that's afraid to let in more energy because that energy can also potentially damage you, I think is the word that you would use. But I would say diminish your physical capacity. However, when you heal somebody, your energetic capacity goes up, and believe it or not, so does your physical capacity. Okay, and so that's a really interesting thing. So if we could get you to start healing, and then as an experiment, go, okay, I just helped someone with a healing. Let me see what my energy is. Maybe you need to take a nap, but you may find that after your nap that you have much more sustainable energy. So I would encourage you to start healing practice and see how that affects you personally on the energetic level, which then can lead to your physical level. I know it's a hard thing to comprehend, right?
Well, the bizarre thing about me is when there were people would just come to me, and I had RSI at the time. I couldn't even lift my arms, but they would come to me, and there was this girl that was dying of lung cancer, and she told me, she said, do you realize you have the strongest light in this whole church? And I was really kind of in awe when she said that to me, and she called me all the way to her deathbed to give her light, and it was really kind of
Honorable,
an
right?
awakening and an honor for
Yeah.
her to ask me to do that, to enlighten her even during her dying hours, but for her to say that to me, it made me feel like maybe there was something of a healer in me that was really strong that could help people.
Right.
But at the same time, you want to protect yourself,
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to go ahead and so Tanya is, hey Tanya, yes, this will be posted on the Sexy Edgy Intuition page, and I think it's going to stay there forever. And then I'll also, what else? I'll also post it on YouTube a little bit later. So Amy, I'm happy to help, with the figuring out of the healing. You already know that you have healing energy, and it's just about giving it, how can I say this? Giving it without giving too much, right? Because it's giving it in a complete block.
Giving it and
without giving
protecting
all of you.
yourself at the
Yes.
same time.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I was channeling God's light through my omitama in my hands and prayer. I was using really powerful prayers to calm down the light, purification light. But, I mean, you have to kind of learn to adjust or I don't do it anymore, but when I did it, it was powerful. It was amazing.
Wow.
and yeah, but that's another story.
Right.
But anyway, I'll let you take
I'm
back.
doing this
the
because
thing.
you're still
Yeah.
healing. It's just that you're choosing a different modality. It's
Yeah.
all the thing.
Yeah.
So for you, Amy, it's about choosing a modality and just exploring in little bits and pieces, and then seeing how you feel energetically, and then seeing how you feel physically. Because one follows the other. Energy happens, and then physical happens, right? And then it stays in the physical much longer because it's much more dense. Okay, so we can talk about that. I'm happy to talk about that offline. So Seema asked, she says that she has recurring foot issues and that she notices it gets worse when she does well and expanding. So here's, so on an intuitive level, and I'm sure Fluffy, you probably understand this really well because you're always up in the ethers, that sometimes it's all about having a balance in your grounding and connection. So, me, my imbalance is as I expand, I gain weight, and that's a no-no, right? So look at me, I'm really going places because I've gained a little bit of weight, that COVID. But the truth is that my recommendation is not to focus on the grounding, but just to make sure that you out grounding as part of the daily practice, and then let the expansion occur, and then use your foot as a barometer. So I'll go back to my intuitive doing house clearings, that my most sensitive chakra is my throat chakra. And so if my throat chakra is affected anywhere in a house or anywhere in a reading, I know I need to pay attention because it's tapping into my intuitive body, my throat chakra. And so it doesn't mean that I need to, yes, it would still be good if I worked on my throat chakra, but I also know that my throat chakra is the thing that's going to be my most sensitive chakra for the rest of my life. So when it taps in, then I need to recognize it and then do the things to get me back into alignment. So I hope that helps, Seema, on that issue. It's great that you're expanding, and it's amazing. And all you want to do is pay attention to use your foot as a barometer instead of as a block, because I do believe it's probably the thing that you're going to have for the rest of your life. And all you need to do is go, okay, if something's going on with my foot, there's an expansion happening. With expansion, there needs to be balance. Let's see where the balance needs to happen, and then see what happens from there. Okay, does anybody have any other questions? Fluffy, you were so quiet this time.
I have a lot going on around me, and I'm just imagining that there's a hurricane going on, and I'm at the center of the storm.
Yeah, you're the eye.
And I'm slowly allowing myself to rotate against that current, so the storm slows down.
I like it. I like playing on words and stuff. So if you're the eye of the storm, instead of using the eye of the storm, use the capital letter I of the storm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. So, yeah.
And I am viewing the storm as my ego. So I am trying to, I got it to stop telling me I can't do things. So it decided to invert, and it told me I can do things.
Yep.
And that's just as likely to get me in more trouble because it makes me be more intuitive.
That's
trying. Not impulsive. That's what I meant. Yeah. And so I am trying to settle my impulsive nature and let my emotions stay settled so I could just think and feel and intuit. Because yesterday you said I am on hiatus. That is absolutely 100% true. One of the cycles that is repeating itself is where I have a job offer that's quite literally tied in with a new housing offer. And this is the third or fourth time it's happened through a different form. And I'm maintaining a spirit of non-attachment.
Right. That's awesome, because what that's saying is if this is the fourth time happening, that means the previous three times there could have been a more optimal outcome, right? And so the universe is putting it in front of you again. So they're like, hey, check it out. You can have better outcome, right? It could be in risk, it could be in boundaries, it could be in lots of things.
And this particular outcome I am hoping for is going to give me the stability and the clearance to allow the other things and objects and people to come through.
That's
Because
awesome.
I'll actually feel safe to let it happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I would also encourage you to write this down.
Oh, I did.
Great. And to keep writing it down writing down the process, because I do believe that there's some gold in there that you can use for a later date.
Thank you.
Book,
I had not,
or gripping, or teaching, or something.
I had not
Right?
thought about that. Thank you.
That's what I'm here for. All right. It's 12 noon, party people, which means it's time for us to wind it down. I'm super, super grateful for all of you. I've got some things coming up that is tied into this this workshop. I have a 3-day intensive that's coming up next month, and it's called Soul Access Point, and it's about using all your different intuitive energies to access information in just as many realms. Okay. I also am going to be doing a talk, except I've already forgotten what it was, which has to do with meeting your clients and helping them with their goals. So it's about communication, and it doesn't have to be on work related, but I like using work as a subject, because there are parameters already in place, which makes it easier for people to see. And then once we see it in our work environment, then it's easier to see in our personal environment, which is hard because, of course, there are much more emotions in our personal life. So I will post those up in Sexy Edgy. I adore you guys. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
If I don't see you sooner, I'll catch you at next Friday Chill and Chat, which I'm hoping to have one of my besties, her name is Bridget, on. And if I don't have her on this Friday, Bridget Salmaggi, who's like amazing Reiki master and is helping us, and she's part of our spiritual boot camp. So yeah, she's all kinds of special. And maybe I'll even have her talk about soul collaging, which we don't talk about very much here either. All right. Thank you all. Have a really good week. You know where to find me if you have any questions. Okay? See you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.